And we're going to get started right about now. My name is Teri Speight. I am an author. I'm a member of GardenCom, and I had my books right here. Of course, they're not here now. But I wrote a book called Black Flora. I'm so excited about it. It shares the stories of African Americans whose hands are in the soil. And my other book, The Urban Garden, 101 Ways to Grow Food and Beauty in the City. Because even though you're in the city, you too can grow beauty no matter where you are. I'd like to introduce Denise Schreiber. She is the secretary of GardenCom. Denise, take it away.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to our GardenCom Authors Talk About Gardening Party. We're glad you're joining us tonight. It's going to be great gardening fun. My name is Denise Schreiber, and I am actually the treasurer of Garden Communicators International, referred to as GardenCom. We are very proud to partner with National Garden Bureau. Diane Blazek is helping us out tonight. We're going to introduce you to some amazing garden writers who belong to both of our organizations. GardenCom members are professionals in the green industry world. You know, they speak to home gardeners or to those in the green industry trade through a variety of mediums, such as photographers, speakers, radio, more. So now I want to turn it over to our co-sponsor, Diane Blazek. Take it away.
Means I should probably have my video on, right? It's always a good idea. So welcome everybody. I'm Diane Blazek. I'm with National Garden Bureau and All America Selections. So as Denise said, yes, it's very, very exciting to be part of this. This is our second ever. We had one last spring. So with the success that we're having with this one, hopefully we'll have another one or two in the spring and maybe another in the fall. We'll just have to see, but it's really cool. I love that we're getting to meet all the authors. Our own organization is 102 years old, believe it or not. So since 1920, we've been educating and inspiring home gardeners or non-gardeners, maybe they'll start gardening, to do even more, to give them more ideas and inspiration. So this book party, just like some of the other webinars that we host, is just one of many ways that we do that. And I believe Shelley was posting a link to NGB in the chat. And as soon as I quit talking, I'm going to post a link to GardenCom. And with that, I'm going to toss it back over to Teri.
First, I want to introduce you to Kim Roman. Kim, you want to tell people a little bit about yourself?
Thank you so much, Teri. Well, I'm a garden teacher, speaker, and writer, and I love to give people a boost of confidence to encourage them to grow at least some of their own food. I didn't really learn how to garden until I had gotten out of the Air Force and my family was in Fort Meade, Maryland. I was a housing area mayor, which is a fancy name for a liaison between the command staff and the residents of the housing areas. And we asked the commander if we could make a community garden. And that's when I learned about square foot gardening, a super simple method created by Mel Bartholomew back in 1976. And things were going really great until we found unexploded ordnance and we had to abandon the garden. So you know, I had to abandon my garden, my first garden, but I never abandoned the love of gardening. And I am sure glad that I didn't go out with a bang with my first gardening experience. Thank you.
Well, we're glad you didn't go out with a bang either, Kim. Our next guest is Kim Eierman. Oh my goodness, Kim, share more about you to our listeners.
Well, we're trying to confuse you because we're all named Kim tonight. No, not really, just a couple of us. But I'm an environmental horticulturalist and an ecological landscape designer based in Westchester County, New York. I literally live 16 miles north of Grand Central Station. So I tell my students, my audiences, and my readers, if I can make a difference for pollinators, you can too. I do a lot of teaching, New York Botanical Garden, Brooklyn Botanic Garden, Native Plant Center here in New York, a lot of courses online. And I do a lot of ecological garden design for both homeowners and commercial and municipal clients. So thank you for having me tonight.
Well, we're excited. And I remember reviewing your book. I love that book.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Our next guest is Janice Cox. Janice, you want to share a little bit about you?
Oh, thank you, Teri. And thank you, National Garden Bureau, for hosting this in GardenCom. If anybody hasn't gone on their website, it's one of my favorite places for free info about plants. But I'm a health and beauty writer and also a garden writer. I specialize in using plants and flowers for creating your own body care products and also crafting and culinary use. And today we're going to talk about, I'm featuring my workbooks on flowers and lavender and loofah. And so I'm really thrilled to be here and sharing this format with all of you.
Well, Janice, you had me at flowers, so I'm so excited. And last but not least, we have Mary Kate. Mary Kate, share a little bit about yourself to our listeners.
Okay, Teri, I will. For the past 20 years, I've been writing about gardens and gardening for a lot of the major magazines in the United States. And I think my mission, I'm most interested in sharing information that can solve horticultural problems. And I've been lucky enough to receive 9 GardenCom writing awards, including I got a gold last year for my work on the Hartley Botanic Greenhouse website. And my latest book, it's co-authored with Kathleen Brensel, is The Healthy Garden, Simple Steps for a Greener World.
And it's a great book, Mary Kate. You know that.
Thank you.
And necessary in these times. Now, we want to get to know the author personalities. So I'm going to ask each of you guys a question. And we're going to stick with our time frame. So, Kim Eierman, what compelled or inspired you to write your book?
Gosh, well, I had realized for many years that pollinators were in trouble, even though there wasn't much of a focus on pollinators other than honeybees. And I did a lot of speaking and teaching about this and did a lot of design work. But I decided that, writing a book that could frame the issue, explain who the pollinators were, and provide some solutions would be a really good idea. And of course, I referenced the victory gardens of World War I and World War II, where, over 20 million people in World War II in the United States gardened for food defense. So I think it's time that we kind of start doing the same thing for our challenge pollinators that we depend upon.
Do you find a lot of people are really beginning to pay attention now?
Oh, yeah. It's we're in a new world. And I think the pandemic only helped. Hard to say that,
Indeed.
right? But we all know gardening has really been in a boom.
Sometimes we learn lessons from our hard falls, right? Janice, what compelled or inspired you to write your book?
Well, my first book came out over 30 years ago, and it was a cookbook for making your own body care products. And I've since written 3 others cookbook style. And when I give speaking or workshops, people come up to me and they've written all over my book, which I take as a big compliment. It means they're actually using the book and reading the book. And they also are putting their own ideas. So for this new series of workbooks, because books are always evolving and changing, I think having a book more interactive where people can have my ideas, but also their ideas all in one spot. So I'm really excited about this new format of putting out workbooks where people can put all the information, seed sources, favorite flowers, and then also my recipes in one spot. So that's it.
That's a novel idea, to make sure that there's room for people to record those things.
Right.
So you don't have to look for that extra pad later on, right?
Right. They were already writing in the book, so I just gave them permission to keep doing it.
Having permission is meaningful, trust me. Mary Kate, what inspired you to write the book?
Well, a couple years ago, I was already working on a book I was calling The Gathering of Gardeners, where I was interviewing experts on various subjects like pruning or design, because I wanted to have a wide diversity of points of view so that readers could see that good information could come from many qualified sources, not just one way or dispensed by one personality. And Then I was approached by Kathleen Brenzel, and she is the former editor of the Sunset Western Garden book. And she was for many years the garden editor of Sunset Magazine. And we'd worked together on several projects before, and she wanted to do a book on health. So we decided to combine forces, and that's how The Healthy Garden came about.
And by combining forces, did you find out anything different by chatting with all the people?
Oh, yes. I think that sense of diversity that's in the book is really vital to have a lot of different. It was great for me. I learned all kinds of stuff I didn't know.
That's great. It's learning is key. Okay, we're going to move on to our second question.
Oh, Teri, you forgot me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't forget you, Kim. It was like, Kim, brace yourself. What compelled you to write your book and the importance of it?
Okay, so I volunteered with 2 different nonprofits, and surprisingly, both asked me to research indoor food gardening. The first resettled refugees, and they usually first lived in hotel rooms or motel rooms. And because of lack of transportation, community gardens were not an option for them. The second nonprofit served wounded veterans, and they had me explore a solution for a veterans assisted living facility in Southern Maryland. And since I'm an Air Force brat, of course, and a veteran, this was near and dear to my heart. And since my mother was a World War II veteran who had Alzheimer's, I knew that we wanted to stick with edible flowers and herbs just in case a patient took a little nibble. And I was just amazed by how much you could grow indoors. Unfortunately, both nonprofits folded, but the research I did for them was the impetus for this book.
And Kim, do you find that in today's world, people are really interested in growing indoors and different ways to do so?
Well, yeah, because of the pandemic, of course, people were saying, oh, I can't get to my community garden and I don't have any place to grow outdoors. So we did see a boon of people growing indoors.
Cool. Well, I'm excited, although I've read your book, I'm still excited that you're sharing it with everybody else. So now we're going to move to our second question. I hope everyone is ready. What zone or region do you garden in, and what are you planning to do next in your garden? Kim Eierman?
So hard to believe, but I am in 7A. And when I remember what winters used to be like 27 years ago, I can't believe that tomorrow it's going to be 70 degrees here. And there's nothing left for pollinators. I counted 4 different plant species in my garden that are still in bloom, thank goodness. But it's a hard slog to be planting for pollinators this late. So what I'm doing, it's more like what I'm not doing. What I'm not doing is I'm not cutting my perennials back.
Thank you.
Right? I'm leaving them as habitat, as a food source. And it's aesthetically like more interesting too. But when we think about all the invertebrates that are living in our leaf litter and our plant debris, it's quite extraordinary. And if we want to see butterflies, we want to see moths, we want to see bees, then we need to provide them with a place to live, not just food to eat. So that's what I'm not doing.
I'm starting a new movement called neaten the garden and not clean it up. It's for the beneficials. We need that. Janice, what about you?
Well, I live in Southern Oregon, so I'm zoned 8A. So my gardening is about 175 days. We start around Memorial Day and go into October, even though this year I too still have things blooming. I still have some zinnias out in my yard, which is very nice. But last year I kind of went on the trend of trying to be easier, less water. And I took out some of my lawn and added more perennials and pollinator area. And it really gave a lot more life to my yard. Not only, people walking by, but now I have butterflies, I have and honeybees and praying mantis and rabbits, which I have kind of a love-hate with them, but I've learned to use chicken wire really well.
There you go.
But I think I'm going to try more perennials, and also my daughter's getting married next year. And so I'm going to kind of put some more roses in. I'd like to have kind of a rose garden. And I haven't been the best at labeling all my roses. So I've kind of joined a group where I send a photo and everybody seems to know the name when I. So I like that. Garden friends are good friends to have.
We are a different breed, aren't we, Janice?
Oh yeah.
Okay, Mary Kate, what about you? What's your zone and what are you going to do next?
Well, I've been gardening for 30 years in the same spot in the Pacific Northwest, in Oregon, further north than Janice. I'm in zone 7. I'm at 1,100 foot elevation. And I've finally come to see that for better or for worse, my garden is no longer young, and neither am I. So I'm making my gardening life easier. And you don't have to have a mature garden in order to do this, but I'm planting more woody shrubs and more small conifers, basically because we live in the great conifer growing belt of the world, and many more native plants. And then I'm making sure every bit of ground is covered with a living mulch of some kind. And I'm constantly auditioning new ground covers to see which one can block weeds but not romp all over everything. And my favorite one so far, the winner, is variegated saxifrage London Pride.
It has a gorgeous leaf, absolutely
It
gorgeous.
does. Yeah, golden.
And I call gardening at our age is a smart, seasoned gardener. And Kim, what about you?
I've recently moved from Zone 7B south of Baltimore to Zone 7A in the town of Northeast Maryland. And of course, zones don't really matter when you're gardening indoors. We kind of have mastery of the weather. So since I moved to a new house and I had to start a garden all over again, my old house was full sun and the new one is surrounded on 3 sides by huge shade trees. So I studied the sun patterns for 9 months before even picking up, a raised bed and putting it in a place, because it's more important to sit and study for a while than to just rush out and do something. So, even though my book is on indoor gardening, I'm best known for the square foot gardening as a square foot gardening certified instructor. And my next 2 projects are to make full use of the 3 4-foot by 8-foot by 2-foot deep raised beds for my veggies. And since my next book proposal will be on wellness uses for culinary herbs, I'm going to, of course, plant a ton of herbs so that I can get great photos for the book.
You have never met a challenge that you weren't willing to go up against, right, Kim?
Absolutely.
Well, now we're going to have our first raffle. And we're going to be raffling off Janice's book.
Ooh.
Diane, let her rip.
There it is. Okay, Janice has beautiful flowers. I have the names here, and I have picked Shauna Bridget. So Shauna Bridget has won Janice's book. So Shauna, if you can please private message me your shipping address, and then I'll make sure Janice gets that.
Yes, here it comes.
Way to go. Let's congratulate our winner. Next, let's see. We've got the 3rd question. This one is a little deep. Who is your book designed for and why? Janice, we're going to go for you.
I would say it's designed for anyone that wants to think about how to use their plants in crafting or culinary or in wellness in a new way. You might have flowers in your yard like calendula that you never thought of using in a body cream, or marigolds that you could make a whole set of napkins with, or, I think loofah. A lot of people think that a loofah sponge comes from the sea and it's actually a gourd. So anybody that wants to just kind of learn new different ways of using the plants that they may already have or are thinking of growing. Or do you want me to say more?
Well, honestly, and with the room that she'll have
Say
to write in
everyone.
that book, she'll be able to take great notes, right?
Yes, that's right.
Mary Kate, what about you? Who is your book designed for and why?
The Healthy Garden, it connects what you do in your own garden with what happens beyond the back fence. And it's really accessible for people who just picked up a trowel in the last 2 years and who need good, solid information. But those who've been gardening for a long time, they can enjoy it too. I'd say it's both aspirational and inspirational, and it's published by Abrams. And boy, they are known for putting out beautiful books. And the photographs, the photographs. Kathleen picked all of them, and they're from many of the top horticultural photographers in the country. There's a lot of different people. And then with the short added features from 20 garden experts there called, oh, you guessed it, A Gathering of Gardeners. Well, it's as if you can pick up this book and you're inviting everybody to come sit down in your backyard with a lemonade and talk plants.
That is very true. Kim Roman, what about you?
Okay, so my book is basically for anyone who wants to grow their own food year round, indoors, no matter what the weather is like. It's for people that hate the cold winter weather and not being able to get out into the garden for a few months. Although I do teach a class on fall and winter gardening without a greenhouse, but it's also for people like me who hate the hot, humid weather and mosquitoes, and they absolutely knock me out. So we also found that during the pandemic, of course, we said that access was restricted to most community gardens. So it was for people that were scrambling, trying to find a way to grow, because we know that hardly anything was in the grocery stores and accessible to us. And this book is also terrific for those who find getting outside to be difficult, no matter what the time of year.
Definitely a necessary book. Kim Eierman, what about you?
So my book is really designed for folks that are either starting the gardening process or have been seasoned gardeners, but really want to do more in terms of an ecological approach in their landscape and understand what the elements of ecological gardening are and why it matters what we put in the ground. Native plants really being the key in terms of their evolutionary connections to the pollinators around us. And there's not such a great understanding of which different types of pollinators use which types of plants. We call these pollination syndromes, the evolutionary floral traits that pollinators have grown to favor. And so I wanted to provide some informational content, but also instructional. So you can feel like you've read the book, you kind of get who are the pollinators that I need to garden for, and then figure out the steps to get there. And I'm finding lots of my clients who are new to the burbs, who have moved during the pandemic, really benefit from this context.
And right you are. When you go from the city to the burbs, that knowledge, it's like you got to make the connection all over again. Great answer. Now, I'm going to ask each of you to share with us one interesting thing you learned while you were writing your book. And we're going to start with you, Mary Kate.
Oh, okay. Well, what I learned is that the laws of irony in the universe are firmly in place. And by that, I mean, here we're writing a book about health, and it's 2020, and it's during the first really scary days of COVID, and so little was known about it. And we were experiencing the ill health of climate change. I mean, that was a year of vicious forest fires. Near my home in Oregon, fires were raging 7 miles away as the crow flies. And our go bags were packed. We lost electricity for days at a time. Try explaining that to a New York editor, by the way. Yeah, I don't have any electricity. My computer, yeah. And anyway, the process of creating the book, it did change my gardening life, because it allowed me to see the bigger picture, to see how fragilely we are all connected. And I understand now that the act of gardening may be one of the most important things you do.
That's right. That's right. It's a sane act of rebellion, so to speak. We're just not going to settle for failing. Kim Roman, what about you?
So, although many people love it and are successful with it, I found that I'm not a big fan of hydroponic gardening, but of course it had to be included in the book. So as soon as I completed photographing that section, I kind of basically tore it apart, threw it in a box, and never will look at that again.
But you might. You never say never, Kim.
I know. It's
Kim Eierman.
Yeah.
So the one thing that stands out, because I keep repeating it to audiences, is the fact that of the approximately 4,000 native bees that exist in North America, about 10% of those aren't yet named. And I learned this little fact from Sam Droege, who is with the U.S. Geological Survey, arguably our smartest federal employee about bees and all things native bee inclined. And he told me, he said, when I interviewed him for the book, he said, Kim, we're about 100 years behind the birders, people who love birds, when it comes to our own native bees. And I thought that was a pretty astounding thing for a bee expert to say. So I share that a lot. So we need to really learn about our native bees, wherever you are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's very important. And Janice, what about you?
I think putting together this book, I learned to be a better photographer. My other books had been illustrated. And so for this series of workbooks, we wanted to include photos. People love photos, and especially of garden plants. And publishers love it if you can do your own photos. And the interesting thing is many of the photos came off my phone. And so it's amazing the technology now that we have in our pocket to capture amazing garden photos. And so I really kind of became a better use. I'm still not very good with Dropbox, so don't get me going there. But I did learn to be a better photographer. Yeah.
I understand that Dropbox thing.
Oh,
Oh my goodness. Oh. Okay. Well, next question, because all of us are actively on the speaking circuit. When you give talks, what is the most common question you get, and how do you answer it? We're going to start with Kim Roman this time.
Okay. So, of course, by far and away, the most common question that I get is, where do you buy your seeds? And I almost hate to answer this because I'm going to forget half the people that I absolutely adore. There are so many. But some of my favorites are Renee's Garden Seeds, M.I. Gardener, like Michigan, M.I. Gardener, Botanical Interest, Baker Creek Seeds, and my favorite for microgreens is True Leaf Market. And one of the other reasons I love Baker Creek Seeds so much is not only do they have a wide variety, I mean, their catalog's about 500 pages, but I love them because they did supply a lot of the photos for my book. And if you know Baker Creek photos, they are just spectacular.
Oops.
Environment.
Okay, there you are, Teri. Lost you for a minute there. Undoubtedly, the number one question is, what do I plant for pollinators when I have deer browse? Anybody have deer in their landscape? Yeah, most everybody, right? Even the clients who tell me we don't have any deer. And then you put a toe in the water and you plant something that maybe isn't that deer proof, and boom, they eat it. So the good news is we have many, many native plants, depending on where you are in the country. You're going to have your own selection of plants that have good deer resistance. The bad news is it's getting scarier and scarier because deer are browsing things now that they weren't, say, 10 years ago. So really thinking about bigger solutions, not just in your landscape, but how we manage the deer population, how we provide natural areas that aren't completely filled with invasive plants that they can't eat is really important. So for sure, that's the number one question.
I have a buck that's stalking me this fall, so the deer issue is real.
Yeah.
Every time I go outside, the buck is there. It's like, why are you here? Okay, Janice, what about you?
Well, my answer is actually kind of similar to Kim Roman. I do a lot of hands-on workshops and talks about and planting workshops, and people always want to know a good source for plants and seeds and ingredients, wellness ingredients. And my answer is always start local, shop locally. It's your best source of success. If you see a plant that is thriving and doing well in your local area, it's going to do well for you. I mean, I've seen so many people that travel and they want a plant that really is not well suited for their local area. So I always encourage them to shop local, go look at your nursery. If you need to take photos of your yard with you to the nursery, you know, I've even cut a little bouquet and taken to my nursery with me to kind of help match up plants that I like and colors and things like that. But I say just shop local. That benefits everybody. That whole slow movement for flowers and food and beauty ingredients, it really makes sense.
Yeah. And being a local is a good thing. That's for sure. And what about you, Mary Kay?
Oh gosh. When I give talks in the Pacific Northwest, the number one question is, how do I get moss out of my lawn? And I usually back up and ask them, do you need a lawn? Because if you just need something soothing, green space to show off your flower beds, there's many other low growing plants that'll serve you better with less maintenance. But sometimes you do need a lawn, like a play lawn. You gotta have grass, but who cares if there's moss? It's green. I mean, you know, after all. But if my questioner is really persistent and says, oh no, I need to know, I say, okay, you got to change up the conditions. You got to have more light. Moss likes low light. You got to have more oxygen in the soil. Moss, of course, goes in where other plants fear to go. And then if you do that, then make it a mix of grasses and clovers, and it'll be far sturdier and better than a monoculture.
Very true in so many ways. Well, it is raffle time again. Our second raffle is going to be for Mary Kate's book.
All right, there it is.
Diane, take it away.
Okay, I get to draw another name out of here. This is so fun. Okay, this one is Jill Robbins. So congratulations, Jill. And if you can message me your shipping address on the chat, then we will get that book out to you.
Great, Jill. I'm glad.
You will be happy. Anyone that's a winner tonight, which everyone is going to be happy with these books. Trust me on this. All righty. Now is the hard part, because it's always hard to choose something that you really want others to try. But this question is, what plant or product do you recommend every gardener try? We're going to start with you, Kim Eierman.
So Teri, you don't mind if I hedge a little bit on this one, right? So I never recommend a particular plant because, you know, we've just on this audience tonight, we've got people from all over the country. So a plant that's really appropriate and regional where I am might not be appropriate, you know, to where you are. So really what my suggestion is to use plants that are native to your region, you know, and appropriate for your site, right? So even if you're you know, in the same region as somebody else, you may have very different site conditions. And I really do advise to try to use as much as you can wild type native species, right? Straight species plants whenever possible that have all that full eco juice. Sometimes we cultivate the heck out of plants and we lose some of that juice. So local ecotype plants, if you can find native plants that are grown from seed, or PS, grow them yourself from seed, to me, this is like a really good way to get started and support your local ecosystem.
And they're hardier too.
Yeah, they're
Aren't they?
adapted to where you are. Yeah.
Yeah. Bonus. Okay. Let's see. Who will we ask this question to next? Janice.
Well, everybody that knows me knows I love herbs and useful plants. And I wrote a whole workbook on lavender. So that's going to be my answer, lavender. It's, of course, my caveat is make sure you shop local and get a species that will do well in your area. But there's over 400 different kinds of lavender. There's lavender for landscaping. There's lavender for culinary use. There's lavender that works well for sachets and crafting and body care. So it's an easy herb or plant to grow if you just remember two things: keep it high and keep it dry. It doesn't like to have a lot of water. So it kind of sounds like an old Western, but high and dry. And I would give lavender a try, and it works well in containers also. So if you have just a patio or a fire escape, try some lavender. It's very useful, and it'll bring pollinators also. Kim will like that to your yard. So lavender.
What's your favorite one?
You know, I really like the English lavender. I do a lot of, it works well in culinary, and it also works well in body care products. So I would say the English lavenders, I like those the best. But, I like them all. I like them all.
Mary
There's even
Kay?
one that doesn't have flowers, the Mirlo.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that one too. Okay, sorry, Mary Kay.
Oh, that's okay. What do I recommend? Well, I grew up on the banks of a river, so I'm going to recommend to everybody to have the sound of splashing water in your space. And it can be small, like a tabletop fountain or a solar-powered bird bath. But it's not just for the pleasure of the gardener. It's for all the other denizens who visit your place. And especially in the arid West, where water's so vital. I have 3 different sources in my garden, and I'm always looking to add more. And consider things like creating shallow wet spots for butterflies and mason bees to puddle in. And in deeper containers, make sure somewhere in there you have rocks so that the critter who falls in can climb out. I hate finding a floating mouse or a bumblebee that didn't make it.
I do too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not fun.
Yeah, it is sad. Yeah. And Kim Roman, what about you?
Okay, so since I basically only grow plants that you can eat, I can't give you a little fancy flower, but I'm going to give you a whole class of plants, and those are herbs. They're flavorful. They smell terrific. They're packed with nutrients and healthy constituents for your body. Plus, in general, they're easy to grow. And this is going to be weird because it's not really a product, but I'm going to encourage everybody to find a seed swap. Our friend Kathy Jentz, Jentz, has started National Seed Swap Day, which is in general the last Saturday in January all over the country, and we're starting to go all over the world. So find a seed swap to participate in. It's going to save you money. You're going to get a lot of great plants or seeds that you might not even find in a good catalog. So that's it.
And I'll be honest with you, a lot of times at the seed swaps, the herb seeds, you find those herbs you would never think of in a seed swap. So that's a great tip, Kim. Now, what is one gardening takeaway that folks will learn from your books? Let's start with you, Janice.
I think just how useful plants are. I mean, I think that a lot of times we look at a flower and it's beautiful to look at. It's nice to use in your home in a bouquet, but we don't always think about that they're edible, or that you could use them and make a body lotion or a bath salt, or as a natural dye, just using it in crafting. I mean, these are plant materials have been used since ancient times, but I think we've kind of gotten away from really using and enjoying our plants. So that's what I would encourage people, is just to kind of look at beyond the pretty face of their plants and, really use them, because plants like to be used.
Very, very true.
Yes.
Mary Kay, what about you?
The biggest takeaway is, I think the healthy garden encourages observation as a learning method. Learning to garden successfully by using the greater natural world as a guide is really pretty important, and we stress it in the book. And that includes touring public gardens to observe what they're growing and under what conditions, and visiting wild habitats around where you are just to see what's thriving there without any fuss. And the book encourages connecting with the people who are using their gardening skills to make the world a better place. Because one healthy garden, frankly, it's not going to make a difference. But if we all connect with other healthy gardens and their gardeners, we can call upon nature's power to heal and to sustain.
Y'all know me, that I always tell people the garden is a healer, and it brings people together from all walks of life.
Yeah.
Let's see, Kim Roman, what about you?
Well, mine's kind of short and simple, and that's that you really can grow a significant amount of food indoors, and it can be a small space. My main growing part was 4 feet by 9 feet in my office. Oh, I do want to throw in something that just kind of dovetails in on what Mary Kate just talked about. I got to hear Doug Tallamy speak last week, and what he recommends is homegrown national park, is where we all take a little bit of our home environment and turn it over to nature. So homegrownnationalpark.org.
And it works. It's like a party in your own yard with nature every single day. I'm a witness to that. Kim Eierman, what about you?
So just kind of expanding on that. If you plant it, they will come. That's really the message. And it's hard for people to comprehend until they do it. So I love getting clients who've never really experienced a real garden or pollinators. And I had a client this year who moved from Brooklyn. Everybody moved, and a single mom with 2 kids. And one of her friends is a bee researcher at the Smithsonian, who recommended me. And she said, I want to get rid of most of the front yard, leave a little bit for pathway, most of the backyard, and do pollinator habitat. This is before she did a stitch of work in the house, in a new house. And my great joy is all of the photos and the videos that I'm getting from her. She's enthralled. I think she's more excited than her children are about what is visiting her garden and what a difference she made. So I love that. And we can all do that.
Yeah, because gardening makes everybody smile,
Yeah.
especially when you're giving back to nature, Well, it's time for a third raffle. Diane, take it away.
But which book are we giving away, Teri?
Gee, would it be the Urban Garden? I think it.
That would be it. Okay, so we're giving away Teri's book, The Urban Gardener, and this time I'm drawing Kim Welch. So Kim has won Teri's book. So Kim, please private message me down in the chat, and we'll get your address and send you Teri's book.
Congratulations to all of our winners tonight. I'm so excited that you all have an opportunity to use our books. Now, one more question. Tell us what is your biggest gardening goof and what you learned from it. Start with you, Mary Kate.
Okay. My biggest gardening goof was a failure of imagination. I mean, how did that little 6-inch tall tree become a 30-footer with a 20-foot spread, and it's still growing? So the remedy, I have to believe that they really will get that big. And to do that, I never rely on plant tags, especially with trees, because tree heights on tags are often cited at just 10 years of growth. So I do my research. I read reliable websites like the Missouri Botanic Garden and good encyclopedias to find out the height and the width of everything. But added to that, I know certain measurements when I'm out in the garden. I know my trowel is 8 inches long, so is my handspan. And I know my short-handled shovel is 3 feet, and my own arm span is 5 feet 6 inches, and because it's the same as my height. And so when I'm out there with a shrub that I know is going to be 10 feet, I can sort of wave my arms about and figure out how wide that space is going to be. And then I use filler plants to cover in the open ground until the shrub goes ahead and grows.
So that's an educational goof, huh?
Yeah, it's a hard education, let me tell you. So many plants
Okay,
end up getting moved.
The garden teaches us to expect the unexpected, and that's okay. Kim Roman, what about you?
Okay, so my biggest garden goof to date has probably happened while I was writing the book. And I did not make sure that the tubing leading from the pump on my hydroponic, this could be why I don't like it very much, on my hydroponic thing, it leads from the pump up to the top. And then of course there's PVC pipes. And I didn't snugly connect the flexible tubing to the nipple. And as a result, it was slowly dripping down the side of the tubing. And actually, it could have been a worse disaster. Only a little bit dribbled off onto the floor. And most of it did go into the catch bin below. But I learned to heat the tubing in hot water to make it more flexible and easy to make sure that it's put on very snugly. And I also learned that my section on troubleshooting in the book was absolutely a great idea.
You learned from your own mistake, huh, Kim?
Yes, ma'am.
Kim Eierman, what about you?
So many years ago, my next door neighbors lost a beautiful red oak. The husband kind of precipitated some of it by hacking away at a boring insect and made things worse. They had to take the tree down, and they wanted to know, what could we put up? We have hardly any room. This tree really shouldn't have been growing where it was. There's only 22 feet between our two houses. So I found fastigiate tulip trees. If you know that plant, it's a wonderful plant, tulip trees. And these were supposed to grow 8 feet wide and 40 feet tall, and planted 3 of them. Provide some nice sun in the winter and shade in the summer, beautiful flowers and so on. The problem is that I've never seen a squirrel or a bird ever nest or use those trees as habitat because of the fastigiate nature of these. So what I learned is, don't mess with Mother Nature. Really, she's created things in such a way that they make sense to the wildlife that need them. So I don't buy fastigiate plants anymore.
That's a great tip in your blooper. And last but not least, what about Janice?
Well, I learned to not get too excited when you see a plant sale. I got last year, I think I got an email and I didn't have my reading glasses on, and it was for daffodils. And I ordered 10 bags and I thought I'd get about 100 bulbs because there were 10 in each bag. Well, it turned out when they got delivered, UPS guy, it was 100 bulbs in each bag. So I ended up with, I had daffodils. It was gorgeous. I mean, the positive is I couldn't have asked for a better mistake. I ended up just using up all my old containers out behind my garage, and I had a cutting garden full of daffodils. And so I really made a lot of people happy with bouquets of flowers. And then, but it was a lot of work. I ended up buying one of those, you put on your drill bit augers, because I was kind of, it helped me. And then I even just started throwing them. I did every bulb technique there is out there, throwing them, containers, augers, but my yard, it looks good. And, daffodils, as we all know, will come back year after year. So hopefully maybe I'll get a reputation, the daffodil lady or something.
Hey, why not? And we've got great resources for daffodil bulbs, that's for sure. Well, I want to thank everyone, because even in our mistakes and our failures, each of us continues to try over and over and over again, because gardening is fun, mistake or not. Now we're going to go into what's called breakout rooms. Let's see, do we have almost everybody back?
It looks like it. It says they're actually closing in 1 second. Okay, so all the breakout rooms have closed.
All righty. So now we're going to raffle off our last two books, Kim Eierman and Kim Roman, their books. Diane, I turn it over to you.
Let me see. Okay. For Kim Roman's book, we have Evie Garcia. Let's make sure she's still on the call, because you have to be present to win. So let's see. She is. Okay. Evie, congratulations. Message me your mailing address in the chat function, and you have just won Kim Roman's book. All right. Shall I go on to the second one?
Yes.
Now we have Kim Eierman's book. And I'm just making sure that the name I drew is still on the call, because we want to reward the people that are still on the call. Okay, Brenda Cash, you have won Kim Eierman's book. So you too, please message me your address.
I did. Yay. That's the one I wanted the most.
Oh, good.
Hurt really, really bad.
I'm glad that everyone came back, and some of you won the book that you wanted to win. And now I'm going to turn it over to Denise.
Oh, okay. So I'm glad that everybody enjoyed this. I'm feeling inspired, ready for the new gardening season, even though mine's going to end this weekend. I even got 2 seed catalogs this week, so I'm even more psyched, and I'm already going through checking them off as to what I want to order. So thank you to our authors for participating. Kim Eierman, Kim Roman, Janice Cox, Mary Kate Mackey, and of course our host and author, Teri Speight. We want to thank you for sharing our garden passion. And as you can see, the members of GardenCom come from many different backgrounds. We can kill things as well as anybody else. To learn more about Garden Communicators International, go to GardenCom, that's GardenComm.org, and you can find out all about us. You can also find speakers there. So Diane, take it away.
All right. I'm trying to multitask by putting the link in the chat for GardenCom. So there's the chat. There's the link for GardenCom. So yeah, I agree with you, Denise. I'm super excited, and I think the timing is right. The seed catalogs are coming out now. So, you never quit gardening. You always want to plan next year's garden. So with that, Teri, I think you're going to explain, if anybody wants to save the chat, how to do that. And I wanted to mention that we've recorded the whole thing. So we will put this on our YouTube channel, and then we'll send a link out to everybody about how to rewatch it if you want to. But with that, Teri, I will toss it back over to you.
Okay. Again, I want you to also save the date. March 23rd, 2023. Save that date, and we'll look forward to seeing one of you all back for new authors, new books, and definitely more progress. Great evening.
Thank you so much, Teri. And I just wanted to say that I will also include a save the date in the email follow-up that I will send out to everybody who registered. So Teri, you did a fabulous job. Thank you for being both a moderator and author. And I will add my thanks again to everybody, and have a wonderful evening. And if you're in the US, have a wonderful Thanksgiving soon.